Hey, I'm Randy Elrod, and I want to talk to you about an experience I started about 7 years ago called Quest, a secret rite of passage for the second half of life. It's an experience that is held at Colleen Retreat, and we have one about once or twice a year, and we have only 3 to 5 people. It's an amazing time, and it's proven very popular, and so now I'm also writing a book about this experience, the Quest, a way to enjoy the second half of life. So how old are you? In your 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s? Well, if so, we have a lot to talk about. I call it Second Life. The median age today is about 40 years old, and life expectancy is around 80. So if you're age 40, you're halfway through life. Let's put that in perspective. If we say adulthood starts around age 21 and you're now 40 or 50, then you've lived about 20 to 30 years of adult life. My father-in-law is 96. He was born in 1924 and his life expectancy was 58. That means he obliterated the mortality charts by 38 years. He has lived almost twice as many years in Second Life. If you're 40 and you obliterate the mortality chart like Jerry, you will live to be 118 or more. Don't believe it? Well, do the math. It's mind-boggling. That means you are staring at 78 years of Second Life. Are you ready for that? Emotionally, mentally, financially? Are you prepared to live another 60 to 80 years in Second Life? And not only live those years, but enjoy them. A recent survey by a major financial firm found that a substantial amount of 40-somethings would retire if they could make it work financially. In fact, millennials especially have embraced a movement called FIRE. The acronym FIRE stands for Financial Independence, Retire Early. And it's dedicated to frugality in pursuit of quitting the workforce as soon as possible. You've probably heard about the 4% rule. It's a bedrock of retirement planning. But does it apply to those who quit working before 65? Well, the rule of thumb holds that retirees, no matter their age, who spend only 4% of their investment portfolio annually, adjusted for inflation, will be able to stretch out their savings for the rest of their life. For example, a 1 million brokerage account gets you around $40,000 a year to spend. But the Quest is not a book or an experience about finances and how to retire in your 40s. There are plenty of highly qualified people to help you figure that out. The Quest is a book, an experience that provides a way to enjoy decades of Second Life, whether you retire or not. It asks, what if you live another 60 to 80 years? Are you ready? Mentally, physically, spiritually, and perhaps most importantly, emotionally. Well, how do I know to ask these questions? Because I've been there. On Tuesday, January 17th, 2006, I gave notice after 29 years at my career. I didn't quit exactly, I voluntarily retired. I was 47. My wife, my children, my friends had a hard time understanding why I couldn't continue to work my dream job and collect my $120,000 salary as a pastor of arts at a megachurch. But I was deeply unhappy with my job. Where over my career, I'd witnessed what were coined worship wars, endless time sitting in administrative meetings that had nothing to do with me, contentious business and staff meetings. Our church members, angry and confused, often lashed out at me for changes mandated by someone else. And I had less time building one-on-one and mentorship relationships, something that's always been a big deal for me. There were several years when I was working over 60 hours a week and most evenings. I was mentally, physically, spiritually, and emotionally exhausted. I was drained. I often said, "I'm just so tired." During my rare spare time, I had created and sold a tech company in the NASDAQ boom of the late 90s, invested the money, and I was debt-free. So I thought, why stick around? The numbers were there for me, and to go to a job that was making me miserable every day, it just didn't make sense, just to keep padding the bank account at that point. Great, huh? I retired at 47, living the dream. Well, not so much. I had no one to tell me about midlife and to guide me through the transition to second life. Our culture makes plenty of jokes about the symbols of midlife crisis: red sports cars, gold necklaces, empty nest, emotional breakdowns, and affairs with younger people. But there was no one to guide me through the transition. And I ask, no one to say this happens to everyone, not just me. To say there are some time-tested ways to survive. To say that it should not be a crisis, it should be an adventure, a midlife search for identity, a quest. Why is there no one? Well, for almost 15 years, I struggled to survive the transition from first life to second. The devastating search for a new identity resulted in 2 affairs, a divorce from my wife of 30 years, the loss of most of my friends, and estrangement from my 2 daughters to this day. As my therapist, who was an invaluable and empathic, albeit very expensive, guide, listened to my story and explained theories, research, and new ideas that I had never heard before from anyone, I slowly began to find myself. I asked him why no one knows about these ways to enjoy the second half of life. He said, "Randy, because these are unprecedented times. Never before in history have people lived so long. Our grandfathers only hoped to live long enough to get a gold watch. There were no hope of decades of life after retirement. This is a whole new world, and there are few, if any, guides for people navigating this potentially devastating time." For several years, I retreated from life, carved out a life on 54 wilderness acres in the Appalachian Mountains. It was a healing time. It was a time of deep suffering. But I began slowly to record the principles that Dr. Steve had taught me, that I learned along the way, the journey of my quest. And I slowly began to understand what it means to enjoy life. On the next video, I'll talk about why I'm investing the next portion of my life serving as a guide for others who are entering second life. I do not aspire to be the guide, but I realize now I am meant to be a guide. And I don't pretend to have found the way, but I have discovered a way to survive the transition of midlife and to enjoy what I call the second life. I invite you to join me on this quest. No matter your gender, if you are age 30, 60, or somewhere in between. If you and I are lucky and smart, we still have a lot of years to enjoy life. And finally, perhaps, find the proverbial Holy Grail. There are many ways to describe the ultimate goal of life: meaning, purpose, nirvana, paradise, heaven, serenity, ecstasy, the promised land, enlightenment. I would like to help you discover your path to enjoyment, and I hope my hard lessons and life experience make sure it doesn't take you 15 long years.